I'm Jonathan P. And right beside me is Michael Wood. And welcome to 1497 Podcast.
And we've got you covered with news from the entertainment world, intriguing interviews, everything to do with sports, and of course, we're going to make you laugh along the way.
And I want my damn respect too.
Yo! Welcome back to the 1497 Podcast, baby. You know the vibes. It's your boy Jonathan Keaton in the cut. Right beside me is the greatest co-host to ever walk the planet. That is Michael Wood, a.k.a. Mr. Wood, a.k.a. Woody, a.k.a. the Woodster, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who picked the Super Bowl right. Mr. Michael Wood is in the house.
Oh, what's going on, John? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. You sounded a little choked up in that intro there, coughing a little bit. Just making sure you're all good.
Yeah. I was getting, a tear almost came down my eye. I was like, man, like Mike was right again. I was like, yeah, almost started crying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was a little scared when Odell went down. The Bengals just got a lot of momentum, but at the end of the day, Aaron Donald was just that guy.
No, facts, bro. And then the crazy thing about it too is that defense completely switched the flip the switch. The defense completely split the switch from the first half to the second half, because the first half, I'm pretty sure they didn't have any sacks. And then the second half, yeah, they had one. And then the next half, did they finish with 6 sacks or 7?
7 or 8.
Yeah, so getting six or 7 sacks in the second half, and then the pressure you could really tell was getting to Joe Burrow as like the game moved on throughout the third and going into the fourth. Another thing now that I wanted to ask you is, did you think that was a holding call on Cooper Kupp? Not when he got the touchdown, but on third and goal. Did you think that was holding?
Yeah, 100%. That was pretty clearly a holding call. And people are just mad that the refs called it. I mean, in all fairness, I thought the refs were actually kind of good that game. And listen, you're in the red zone, Super Bowl on the line, biggest game of the year, and you're guarding the best receiver in the league. You're gonna have to hold him. I mean, literally, if you watched every single play, he got held, and you even said on the touchdown, he was held on the touchdown. It wasn't called. So they could have called that too. Just imagine if they threw a flag on that, how crazy people would have gone. So that was 100% a flag, no doubt in my mind. The Bengals, as good as their linebackers and secondary are, it was not enough to stop Cooper Kupp, and it would have been even worse if Odell was playing. It would have been even worse than it was, because Cooper Kupp was the only person they had to lock down, and they did so until that last drive.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but the defensive coordinator for the Bengals is kind of like just stopped coaching. The Rams were they knew that they were going to give it to Cooper Kupp, and the defense knew that they were going to give it to Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp still stepped up. So I'm glad he won Super Bowl MVP in that regard. And with the holding call, like, they should have did what Jalen Ramsey did, because I thought that should have been a holding call too, because you saw on the replay, Jalen Ramsey got a hold of T. Higgins' jersey, but they didn't call that. So I thought that was going to be like the same type of thing with the touchdown, with the third down play in the end zone. The way I saw it was, he had him like when he made the cut, and then he let go, and then he got back on him again once the ball was up. So for me, it was one of those up in the air type calls.
Yeah, I think the Ramsey one was, I mean, obviously we're comparing Ramsey to Logan Wilson, so Ramsey's coverage was much better than Wilson's was. On Ramsey's flag, he grabbed him as soon as the ball was getting there. He was pulling and reaching for the ball, whereas Wilson grabbed him before he made the cut, then after he made the cut. So he grabbed him twice in the same play, grabbed his body. Jalen got a hold of the jersey, which I agree should have been a flag. It should have. But it was still like Jalen was still there. Like he probably would have made a play without grabbing the jersey. But Logan Wilson grabbed him twice in the same play, and not just jersey, he grabbed his whole body. So it was a flag. But listen, the penalties did not lose the Bengals the game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What lost the Bengals the game was Tyler Boyd dropping that third down pass, because the way that drive was going, I think they would have been able to kill more clock, and they were getting close to field goal range. Evan McPherson's been hitting long field goals this whole entire season. I think he's hit double-digit like field goals more, or like 40-plus yards. So they were getting close to that range. But you saw that Tyler Boyd, as soon as the ball touched his hands, he was thinking about running to the first down. And that's what a lot of players are going to do in that situation while playing on an underdog team. So I think that was the biggest point for them on them not winning that game yesterday.
I don't know. I don't like to point to one play and say it's the reason they lost. I like to point to like some of the things, and it's what we thought it was going to be. It was the O-line. You can't have your quarterback get sacked 7 times and expect to win. So that's why they lost the game. And like I said earlier, I believe it would have been an even worse. I believe it would have been a blowout if Odell didn't go down, just because of the attention he was getting, and he was allowing Cooper Kupp to get open. So the Bengals kind of got lucky that Odell went down, because otherwise I think they would have got embarrassed, because it was already a 10-point game, and then Odell went down. So obviously Tyler Boyd he didn't look it in and tried to turn up field, and like you said, a lot of people are going to make that mistake. But unfortunately it's the one that's costly. And then Samaje Perine on that last play, a lot of people think he had a chance to catch it. I didn't see how close it actually was to him, but from the angle on the TV, it looked like he could have dove for it and tried to make a play. But the Bengals it was a great season, but let's be real, I don't think that they really were the second best team in football this year.
It's going to be it all depends on Aaron Rodgers. That's how I look at this offseason. Because if Aaron Rodgers goes to the AFC, I mean, think about the quarterbacks that those top 10 teams in the AFC are going to have to face on a daily basis. Let's say Rodgers hypothetically goes to the Broncos. You're going to play the Broncos. You're going to have to play the Bills. You're going to have to play the Chiefs. You're going to have to play the Bengals. You're going to have to play the Chargers. I think Derek Carr can be thrown in that conversation. So you gotta play the Raiders. Who else am I missing here? There's a lot of Ravens. Whatever happens with the Browns, not their quarterback scenario, but their defense is still something to look after for, and Pittsburgh too, so on and so forth, and whatever they do at quarterback. It's going to be extremely hard. It's going to be extremely harder for them to get to the point that they got to, which was if they won the Super Bowl, it would have did them wonders from the offseason to the future from now. But if Aaron Rodgers leaves, the Rams could repeat. I really think the Rams could repeat.
Yeah, I agree. The Rams could repeat. I don't think that the Bengals are going to be in the Super Bowl again for a long time. That's just how I see it. This was a team that was built on momentum, and it's going to be tough when you're looked at as one of the top dogs to build this momentum again. And also, I could be wrong, because that defense, like I said on the last show, they added 7 people in the offseason. 7 people in the offseason, which is ridiculous. 2 of them are top 3 at their position, Trey Hendrickson and Mike Hilton. So they did get a lot better this offseason. But like you said, the AFC is stacked with young quarterback talent and teams that are pretty good. So I just don't think the Bengals are going to be back in that situation, especially because I don't think the Browns are done, and I definitely don't think the Ravens are done, because they had so many injuries and they still almost made the playoffs. So they're in one of the toughest, if not the toughest, division in football. The only thing that they do have on their side is they know how to play well together, and they have really good chemistry. So maybe we'll see them win that division again. But I think it's going to be at least 5 more years before the Bengals are in another Super Bowl.
That division is going to be a dogfight next year. Whoever they get at quarterback, I'll say, is going to be – actually, they can get anyone at quarterback, and I think they'll be able to compete. Because look at it this year. Big Ben, obviously at the tail end of his career, how he played in the first half of the season, and then how he played in almost every single fourth quarter game throughout the regular season with an immature wide receiving core, Juju Smith-Schuster going out, and not having that much of offensive power through three quarters in most of their games. And they made the playoffs. Despite them getting blown out, they, like, in most conversations, you wouldn't have said, like, okay, like, this Steelers team is really going to make the playoffs. They'll probably be fighting for it, but they wouldn't make it. So I think with any quarterback, Mike Tomlin and his crew can turn that franchise into a team that can always compete every single year. Because Mike Tomlin's a winner. That's been in his DNA for his whole entire life.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I honestly think the Steelers are gonna get a pretty good quarterback, and I don't think it's gonna be just. I mean, they might stick with like one of the guys because they have three suitable quarterbacks in their building right now. But if Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson's on the market, I expect those two teams to make huge pushes.
Speaking of quarterbacks, your boy and a guy that I've been growing to defend a lot more, Carson Wentz, might get traded or cut, Mike. I thought he played decent this year, and he's getting traded or cut? Talk to me. What's happening?
Yeah, I don't know. You always want to upgrade your quarterback, especially when you have a team that was so good all around, and then it came down to the last game against the worst team in the league, and you can't win. So obviously a whole lot of blame goes on the quarterback. I thought Carson played a pretty good season. He seems, whenever there's something that goes wrong, the easy person to blame is Carson Wentz. He was not. I think Carson Wentz was a top 10 quarterback this season. I still believe that the way he played, he was top 10 this year. But no, I don't blame the Colts if we're being honest. I mean, they had Phillip Rivers and they made the playoffs last year, and it was pretty much the same team. So, and actually this year, Jonathan Taylor was better. So you're going to look to upgrade your quarterback after a year like this. I don't know if he's going to be gone or not, but I do believe this team can be special with Carson Wentz. So if he goes, that's unfortunate, and hopefully he gets a job somewhere else because I'm still a Carson Wentz believer.
So, speaking on Carson Wentz, I have a question for you, my friend. With that debacle they had against the Jaguars, my Bills had the same one, but it was earlier in the season. And with these meltdowns, and I wouldn't say meltdowns, with these performances that they had on teams that they should have beaten, do you put more blame on Frank Wright or do you put more blame on Carson Wentz?
Probably Frank Reich. Just because I've said it a lot. I don't like to blame individual games on just the quarterback. Quarterback's the easiest position for someone to call out. But at the end of the day, I think you got to point to Frank Reich, just because when you look at what Carson did this season, compared to other quarterbacks in the league, he had the 9th best QBR. He was 10th in touchdowns, and he had the 3rd least amount of interceptions. Like that's a pretty good season for anybody else. But it's Carson Wentz, so he's getting all the fingers pointed at him. He played pretty good. I think honestly Frank Reich tried to run the ball too much because we see with a guy like Tannehill. Tannehill, people were like, "Oh, he's a top 10 quarterback," because he's throwing. When you have such a good running back, throwing the ball is a little bit easier. But at some point, when you need to throw the ball and you have a quarterback who's used to feeding off the run game, like Tannehill and Wentz became accustomed to this season, it makes it hard to step up big in those big moments. So I honestly blame it more on Frank Reich.
Yeah, you got to learn how to balance your offense, right? Because if your offense is balanced, then you're going to be able to strike at your fullest capability. And with those games, it's either JT is going to run over 100 plus and they win the game, or Carson's going to pull some heroic tricks out of his hat. Like, you just didn't know what to expect. And then when JT wasn't involved, Colts fans were like, well, we need to get JT involved. I think they got to find that balance with whoever they bring in. And I heard they might bring in Jimmy G, which for me, personally, I think that's a good fit. Or if they decide not to give away Carson Wentz, I think that's a good fit too, because you also have to look at Frank Wright in the vision of, okay, Phillip Rivers at the tail end of his career, not as mobile, more of a pocket passer, if not most of his game is pocket passing. And they got to the playoffs and they almost beat my Buffalo Bills in Buffalo last season, despite Jonathan Taylor not being as great as he was at that time, and a couple other offensive pieces not being what they were at that time. So for me personally, I put more of the blame on Frank Wright, because you got to know your team and you got to know the game plan going into these games. You got to beat teams that you need to beat.
Yeah, I mean, and especially you said that they almost beat your Bills last year. Your Bills this year are better than they were last year. And the Colts demolished them. They just didn't beat teams that they were. They did not beat teams they were supposed to beat. And sometimes that's just how it turns out. I mean, the defense, the offense was exactly as good as it was last year. The defense was pretty much almost exactly as good as it was last year. So it was literally like just as good as their season last year. The only difference is the defense gave up 3 less points in the total season last year, and that's in 1 less game too. So I guess you can skew it like that. But this team was not bad by any means, and you have to point the finger at somebody. A lot of people want to point at Carson Wentz, and since I'm a Carson Wentz guy, I'm just going to point it at Frank Wright.
Yeah, that's understandable too. But another thing, Super Bowl halftime show. I will say this: if you grew up in the 90s era and the 2000 era, and you understood everything that was going on in both eras, you love the halftime show. You probably thought it was like the best halftime show that you ever seen. I mean, you see Snoop Dogg, you see Dr. Dre, you see Eminem, you see Mary J. Blige, and then you see 50 Cent pop up. You're like, golly, this is something. This is just great. It's just great entertainment. But if you're someone like me and you that grew up in like the mid towards later 2000s, because I was watching TikTok earlier, and like a bunch of people were like, well, I mean, it was mid, like it wasn't that good. And like for me that didn't even grow up in that era, I thought it was up there for like top performances. I thought it was really good.
I don't really watch halftime shows. I can't remember the last halftime show I watched. I watched this one because I was with a bunch of people, so we watched it, and I was like, oh, it's pretty good. But I'm more focused on like the actual game, so I wasn't comparing it to like any other. But I literally can't remember another halftime show that I have watched. So this is my number one, just because I literally don't remember any other halftime shows.
Well, since we were both focused on the game, and I was focused on the halftime show before, I was focused on the halftime show too. I was focused on the halftime show, excuse me. What spoke out to you, Mr. Wood, about the Super Bowl? Give me 3 to 5 things that you saw good from this Super Bowl between the Bengals and the Rams, my friend.
Yeah, I'll just go with my 3 biggest takeaways. Number one is that Matt Stafford is a Hall of Famer if he wasn't already. I believe he would have been already, just because his stats speak for themselves. Aaron Donald, in my opinion, is the greatest defensive player of all time. And then the other one, which I said a couple times already today, the Bengals are not going back to another Super Bowl. Joe Burrow might, but this team, Joe Burrow is going to have to be somewhere else.
My takeaways, I'll give 3. I gotta make it equivalent. My 3 are Jamar Chase played a very, very good performance, but he's not a top 5 receiver. Not yet. He's not a top 5 receiver. Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, just look at the second half. Everyone in the building knew the ball is going to Cooper Kupp. The defensive coordinator for the Bengals knew the ball is going to Cooper Kupp. And what happens? Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp drives down the field. Cooper Kupp gets the game-winning touchdown, and they're celebrating in LA. Like that, and he was triple crowned this year too. And the reason most of their games were won, I think that I will let that marinate a little bit, but I think that can speak for itself because a lot of people don't even think that he's the best receiver right now. And I think it's blasphemy almost. And then number 3, the most obvious one, Bengals have to get an offensive line. I was this close, Mike, this close to being like, wow, Joe Burrow got sacked this many times and they won a Super Bowl. I was this close. I was about to say, you don't even need an offensive line once you won the Super Bowl. But after that, and then once the pressure, like them not even getting the sacks, the pressure getting towards Joe Burrow, you saw how it affected him. He wasn't able to make those passes. He wasn't able to make or have those passes accurate enough for his receiver to go out and make a play. And especially with the T. Higgins one, I thought that was going to be a wobbler, like underthrown, but T. Higgins somehow made that play. But you got to get an offensive line.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to they're going to have to get an offensive line, and hopefully that's what they focus on in this draft, as opposed to going for another wide receiver or friend of Joe Burrow's, which obviously I believe that they're going to do this time, just because they've seen how important it is. A couple playoff games, Joe Burrow's been sacked over 3 times, which I think they only won the sack battle one time, which isn't surprising. You get sacked 7 times and then 9 times in a game. But yeah, I agree with you. They need an O-line. And that's probably what they're going to focus on in this draft, hopefully, or maybe in the offseason.
Yeah, hopefully. We gotta look at who's going to be available in the offseason, because as the Super Bowl lived up to the hype, and as to hopefully the offseason lives up to the hype, this could be a great start to the new year. I mean, the Super Bowl, I think the margin, I want to look up the margin of every game, because I think it's been the closest game margin that we have had in any playoff era ever. Like every single game was close.
Yeah, well, except a couple.
Well, yeah.
The Eagles game wasn't close, Steelers game, but yeah, pretty much every game was close.
Yeah, and then one crazy thing I was watching the Lakers and Warriors game, and they were talking about Steph, and one of my friends talking about how like bad Steph has been playing. And they pulled up his numbers, and I was like 25-7 or 25.7 points per game. I was like, okay. And then it was like shooting worse from the field and the 3-point. And his lowest percentage is 38% from the 3. And I was absolutely astonished. And then obviously his field goal percentage, I think it was 40%. But 38%, like think about all the players that we think are good enough to shoot the 3. They're kind of sitting at that little gray area of 38 to 40%. And some players, 38% would be their best percentage shooting the 3 ball. And that's his worst. That is just, I don't know if that speaks more of his greatness or just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that, but I think one thing that gets overlooked in the greatest shooters of all time conversation is that man Steph Curry. You're talking about 38. Well, Steph is at 37.5 this year. Steph Curry shooting 40% from 3. That's his worst career ever. 40%. Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time. Don't quote me on it, but greatest shooter of all time, Steph Curry. No, but yeah, I agree. Steph Curry. It's because he'll have games where he shoots like 1 for 11, and then the next game he'll shoot like 6 for 7. It's like it's crazy. He's so ridiculous, and I agree with you. The way that he's definitely having a down year, no doubt about it. But the way people make it seem like he's like just chucking up garbage is, I mean, he's playing a really good season. He's averaging 26, 5, and 5, or 26, 6, and 5. So yeah, good season for Steph. He's just getting a lot of hate for really no reason.
Yeah. But Russ too, speaking of hate, Russ was looking real, or not really good. He was looking like his certain self the other day. You know, he had an alley-oop to Anthony Davis, and it looked like he was slowing down on most of the mistakes that he has been collecting this offseason. I'm telling you guys, just wait for it. Russ is going to be Mr. Triple-Double again this season.
Yeah, maybe. I've watched a few Lakers games. Actually, I've watched more than a few, and he just doesn't look like he's very good right now. That's the easy way to put it. He plays too out of control. It's hard for him to get in a groove when he's playing with LeBron because they both like to bring the ball up. They both like to kick to shooters, and when they're both on the court, neither one of them are. Especially Russ. Russ is not a shooter by any means. He's the third worst 3-point shooter in the league. And then LeBron's obviously not a shooter, but he's getting better. He's near that Steph Curry percentage this season. So, yeah, when Russ and LeBron are on the floor together, I think it just causes problems. But when Russ is by himself, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes he'll play like his old self.
Yeah, I think that Frank Vogel's got to look more into how to implement Russ into this game because, like, you're stuck with him now. So you got to find something to at least attempt of making a playoff push and winning a championship. And LeBron's got to talk to Russ too. I know Russ is a grown man, but most organizations, if not all organizations, if you have LeBron on your team, LeBron is controlling that team. We saw it in Cleveland, we saw it in LA, or we've seen it in LA, and he wasn't able to do that in Miami, but Russ is there because LeBron told the Lakers, go get Russ. So LeBron's got to have a conversation with Russ, and he's got to sit down and be like, yo, got to stop playing like this. We need to figure out what's going to be best for you so we can win games. Because despite all that, LeBron is playing out of his mind. He's playing like an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he is, and it's not going to really count for anything if they don't make the playoffs. So Russ has to get back into a groove somehow. And listen, I'm not a basketball coach, so I'm not going to give them a suggestion on how to do it. But Frank Vogel's got to figure it out. They have to get back into a groove, and that's going to be on the shoulders of LeBron and Anthony Davis to try and get Russ more involved and make him feel like he's wanted. Because at this point, you can't get rid of Russ. He's on your team for the rest of the season, unless you cut him, which would be stupid, just because of how much money you would waste. So they're stuck with Russ, and they just got to try and make it work. And like I said, if anybody in the league can make it work, it's LeBron James. So we'll see what happens down the stretch here, but the Lakers have to buy in that Russ is going to be able to help them get it done, or else if it isn't already, their season is over.
Yeah, you heard it here first, Lakers. Gotta do something with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Russell. Anywho, oh man, Mr. Wood is quite the character. He is quite the character. Anywho, what else you got? We should do. Well, go ahead, and then I'll say.
I was gonna say I didn't have anything else, so you take it away.
No, I was about to say we should do Hall of Fame or not. We haven't done that in a while.
All right, well, let's do one guy. I don't really have any stats, so let's try and think here. Let's do a Super Bowl guys. A guy who's just in the Super Bowl.
Okay. Can't do Stafford because like we're both gonna say yeah to that.
Yeah. Bengals are all too young, so it's got to be someone on the Rams. The only person I can think of is OBJ, but I'm not sure how.
Is he still like in the he's still like pretty young though? Like he's still got a Von Miller? Have we done Von Miller?
Oh, he's a hot. I think we're both safe. Yeah. We'll both say for sure.
Andrew Wentworth, the the left. I think he's a right tackle. No, left tackle. I think he's a left tackle.
I mean, yeah, we can go with Andrew Wilworth. I'm gonna say yes. I don't have stats for you, but you play that long at on the offensive line, that you've got to be pretty dang good.
I think he was like a six-time Pro Bowl or something like that. He played in Cincinnati in his earlier days, and he did a good job on, I think it was Sam Hubbard, and that's been him and Trey. Let me look up his name real quick. I think it's Trey Hawkinson. Let me see. Trey. Or no. Anywho, the other defensive end on the Bengals that's been really predominant in their sack in this year. Sam Hubbard's been the same way, and he did a really good job in containing Sam and not letting Sam get to the quarterback, because most of the pressure in my eyes came from the right side of the field, and Sam Hubbard didn't really get to the quarterback as much, because we saw how good he played, or not how good he played, on how the defensive coordinator was kind of flushing him out to the linebacker position. So I would throw Andrew Wentworth in there too, because he's been a very good left tackle throughout his whole career. But what I don't like is how Devin Hester is not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no, I can't believe Devin Hester got snubbed. Listen, the simple way to do the Hall of Fame is, if you're the best ever at your position, you're in the Hall of Fame. Because people are trying to make the argument that he wasn't a good wide receiver. That doesn't matter. You don't, if someone's a good punter, you don't say, oh, he wasn't a good quarterback, so we can't put him. No, he's a punter. If he's the best punter ever, you put him in the Hall of Fame. Devin Hester's the best returner ever, you put him in the Hall of Fame. I think it's that simple. I don't know how they messed that up.
The NFL needs, I don't know, they need help. Well, since I'm running out of things to say, and Mr. Wood doesn't have anything else to say, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the lovely 1497 podcast, baby. We're almost getting to that century mark. Episode 100. We're coming close. So stay with us. And we're getting close to that little anniversary time where me and Mike have been working together on this podcast. I think it's coming up. It'll be coming up in, I think, late March or early April, one of those months. Anywho, subscribe to the podcast on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. Like and comment our videos on YouTube. Follow our podcast on at 1497 Podcast on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Me and Mr. Wood will be back on Thursday. As always, trust the process. Go have yourselves a day. We'll catch y'all at a random time on Thursday. We out. Peace.